The schedule's out. My goodness. I'm the doc, John Macaroon. Christian Boer is here. We're going to recap everything that we learned about the draft. The leakers did their job. My goodness, all day long. We've been watching, we've been paying attention to the draft. We've been paying attention to the schedule. The early draft is now, when we looked at the leaks, we looked at what was going on. It looked interesting the way it was put together, Christian. It was, one of those situations in which the schedule is a big event. It's a big deal. Everybody kind of gets excited. They're waiting all day long. Who's going to be on Thanksgiving? Who's going to be the team that the Lions open against? How does the team look? Where are they going to go potentially later in the year? The months of November and December are very unique in that, the Lions fans don't want to go out there in the cold and, travel. And clearly with a quarterback like Jared Goff, he's had success still in Detroit, but you definitely feel like, okay, the Lions, when you look at the schedule, there's some things, the way it laid out, I thought was intriguing. So I'm curious on your end, because I loved it. I loved the reaction. I loved what the early thoughts from what people are saying about this draft. I'm looking at it, I'm like, you know what? I could see the early buzz where people are like, okay, maybe 13, 14 wins. We'll talk about that. But what was your early reaction when you saw how the schedule kind of started to shake out throughout the day? And you start the year with divisional foes with the Packers and the Bears. So I'm interested in your thoughts. What are your takeaways from the Lions 2025 schedule when you first saw it?
Well, I think that there's a lot of interesting things you can take away from this schedule. First and foremost, you start the year with two divisional opponents, so you have the opportunity to set a strong impression on the division for the 2025 season. Dan Campbell always talks about the importance of winning in the division. It helps you win the division outright. If you have a good record in the division, it probably means you're going to have a good record overall. And last year, the Lions did just that. So you talk about a team last year, they went 6-0 in the division. Can they do that again? It's going to be tough. But I do think you could start 2-0. I think they could absolutely start 2-0 in the division. You start 2-0 on the year, and vibes are great. So, and that'll be good for them, because after that, things start to get pretty tough. I mentioned the NFC North, but they're going to have a chance to, in a roundabout way, win the AFC North over their next 3 games. They've got 3 straight AFC North opponents after that. You'll see Baltimore and Lamar Jackson in week 3 in primetime. You'll see Cleveland, and then you'll see Joe Burrow. You've got the AFC North teams early on. You've got both of the teams that appeared in the Super Bowl last year in primetime. You've got Kansas City in week 6, Philadelphia in week 11, both of those games on the road. Those road games, there's going to be a lot made about the Lions and their ability to win on the road. We talk about them playing in the elements. They're going to have plenty of opportunities to do that this year. Talk about making trips to Washington and Philadelphia, both in November, and then Chicago to end the year. So this isn't last year's schedule where they only played 3 outdoor games. They've got plenty of chances to go out and prove all those opinions that many have about them wrong. And I'm really excited to see how it all stacks up, because let's face it, this is a tough schedule that's made for a team that's won the division in 2 straight years. It's not going to be easy, but when you're as good as they've been, it never is. So if the Lions want to get back on top of the NFC North, they're going to earn it for sure.
Well, one of the first things that I noticed, and I know you and a bunch of other Detroit reporters were looking and we're like, oh my God. Personally speaking, the Detroit Lions are going to appear on both holidays. And look, I'm a football fan. I cover the team. You and I both have covered the team since 2019 on an intense daily basis. But there's still things on a personal note when you look and you go, okay, you understand that you're sacrificing a little bit of Thanksgiving for watching the Detroit Lions and covering and writing and creating content like this. But what's difficult is that this year, Christian, 2 holidays, and you have to report it to your family. You got to tell your family, hey, oh my goodness, the Lions are going to play on Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so when you tell that, I joked around on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. I told my wife, I said, hey, hon, it's 2 holidays this year. And they're getting used to it. My family's getting used to it with the amount of work that you do in the NFL. But what was your reaction when you say, man, that's just going to be some time that, how are you going to handle it when you found out that the Lions are going to appear in 2 holiday games? I just think that on a personal note, it's a little bit tough.
Yeah, I mean, first things first, thank goodness. The fact that it's on a holiday and it's on Netflix means that I won't have to get my own subscription. I'll probably be back at my parents watching the game. So that's at least good. But no, I mean, listen, that's the nature of the beast right now in the NFL. I mean, there's nothing off limits for the NFL. The NBA was traditionally the king on Christmas, and the NFL has taken that over. And Thanksgiving is an NFL holiday. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we're a stone's throw away from making New Year's Eve an NFL holiday or Halloween an NFL holiday. I don't know, but I don't think anything's really off limits at this point. I mean, at this point, they're probably considering maybe playing games on Christmas in Ireland or something of that nature. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot of different avenues you can go with it. At the end of the day, working on Christmas isn't there's always worse things out there. And at least, our definition of work is that we get to watch the Lions, right? That's our job. So it could be worse, but you know what? I mean, is it a little bit of an inconvenience? Yes, but I do think that it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, no doubt. The interesting part is that the Detroit Lions now, when you look at that schedule, Christian, oh my goodness, the NFL world was like, we want the Lions. We want the Detroit Lions featured heavily across prime time, where there's going to be, I think the majority of the road games will be televised to a big, huge national audience. So it's a team that's ready to handle it. Clearly, you got big personalities like Dan Campbell, big personalities like Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown and superstars galore all across the field. So naturally speaking, when just based on 2024, when the Lions were featured, they drew heavy ratings. These fans, look, you still have a handful of people now listening and watching right now. Thank you to the chat. I appreciate it. Message, comment. We look forward to hopefully doing this more often live. But it's just a rabid fan base. And that's what motivates us to keep recording live and being awake and talking about it. But the Detroit Lions are featured heavily in primetime. Lots of Thursday night games, Monday night football. You go Thanksgiving, and then you play another Thursday night football game back to back. I believe against the Packers and then the Cowboys in back to back weeks. So you have an opportunity. A lot of eyeballs will be on the Detroit Lions, Christian. Do you like that? Do you like the idea of I know it stinks for us personally too, again, in that a lot of late nights and coffee and things like that, a lot of 1 a.m. writing. But look, more of the country is going to see the Detroit Lions this year. And I think it's a great situation too, because you have a lot of talent to be able to withstand the level of competition that you're going to face. I think the Lions are ready. The Lions are ready again to be showcased in primetime, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they were the most watched team in the NFL last year, if I'm not mistaken. Like, they are a commodity now. When you talk about the teams with the most primetime games, it's the Dallas Cowboys, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Detroit Lions. I mean, how crazy is that sentence? If you would have told me that 3-4 years ago, I would have been like, what are you talking about? But now here they are, and it's because they are one of the most marketable teams. Like, Dan Campbell is the guy that everybody loves. Amon-Ra St. Brown has worldwide popularity with his roots in Germany. Jared Goff is one of the best comeback stories the last few years, with his descent from being essentially tossed aside by the Los Angeles Rams to now becoming an MVP finalist for the Detroit Lions. So this is a story that a lot of people can root for and get behind, not just in the Motor City, which is so proud of their home team, but across the country. With all these players coming from different backgrounds, like Kirby Joseph being from Florida, he has that appeal. Like, this is a team that everybody wants to watch now, not just in Detroit, not just in Michigan, but really all over the country and all over the world. And for that reason, this is a team that's going to continue to play these primetime games and get huge ratings. They were really good in primetime last year. And when you're really good in these national televised opportunities, these fans who may not be as exposed to the Detroit Lions as we are here in Michigan start to learn the names and the players. And Jahmyr Gibbs goes and scores 4 touchdowns on Sunday Night Football. Now everybody wants to know more about Jahmyr Gibbs and see him on their television more often. And so that's exactly what's going to happen. The Lions are in these primetime opportunities because they've earned them. And as long as they keep playing well in these situations, that's going to keep happening.
Yeah. And look, I do think that last year the Lions were able to handle some of the difficult challenges that were faced based on the schedule. So it's going to be a situation in which I think Dan Campbell will have He'll have his team ready. And I like the way, the schedule laid out. I like the idea of a lot of primetime games, a lot of opportunities to step up, because that's when the Lions, I think, show out. They go out there and they show out. And when healthy, this football team is one of the best. And I think that the fans that are watching and people that look at this football team when they stack up the rosters, yeah, we talked about a lot of the injuries, but this football team has a lot of talent. But now let's dive into the schedule just a little bit here. What do you think is the toughest stretch? To me, Christian, I look at it like right after the bye week, you got a tough stretch there that's going to be a little bit challenging to look at. And I think that, I'm pretty happy with the start. I'm of the opinion the Lions are going to start the season 5-2 with that week 8 bye. I'm happy with where the bye week is this year, though. Hey, thank you, NFL, for not boning the Lions with an early bye week, right? Credit to the league for saying, okay, let's be a little bit normal. But you come out of the bye and it's 3 tough games. Week 9, 10, and 11, I believe, is the toughest stretch. Week 9 is the Vikings at home, and then you got 2 games at back-to-back against the NFC East, against the Commanders, week 10, and then week 11 against the Eagles. Is that the toughest stretch of the year, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I do think that is the toughest, 3-game section of the schedule. I think that if J.J. McCarthy is a hit for the Vikings, then that's going to be really, really tough, that 3-game stretch. But for the sake of not conforming, I'll give you 3 other games, or I'll give you another stretch of the schedule that I think is going to be really tough, and that's weeks 3 through 7. You've got at Baltimore, Cleveland, at Cincinnati, at Kansas City, and then Tampa Bay. In that stretch, you've got 3 playoff teams, 3 teams that won their respective divisions. 2 of those teams you have to play on the road, and then you have to go to Cincinnati, which I think Cincinnati and the way they play is a really tough matchup for the way the Lions play right now. And yes, the Lions made plenty of moves to fortify their secondary, but I think when you play as much press man coverage as they do, there's going to be some trouble in covering Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Andre Yoshibaz and all the guys they've got. And so I think Cincinnati is going to be a really, really tough matchup for the Lions just based on the way they play. After Cincinnati, you've got at Kansas City, which is always a tough place to play. Lions won there the last time they played there, so let's not discount the confidence they should have going into that one. And then you end that stretch with the game before the bye week. Tampa Bay, who won their division, who came into Ford Field last year and won on week 2. So that'll be another tough one. I think that like I said earlier, the schedule is loaded. There is going to be no gimmies. I mean, there never is in the NFL, but the way the Lions have beaten teams last year, like Tennessee and Jacksonville, you can bet that there's probably going to be some blowouts, and they're going to handle business against some of these teams. But I do think, man, that gauntlet with Baltimore and Cincinnati and Kansas City all in a 4-game stretch, oh boy, those are going to be 3 tough road trips, and you got to make it 3 out of 4 weeks. That's going to be difficult. That's going to be really tough.
Yeah, let us know, chat. What do you guys think? Shout out to John Hughes. I know he definitely pays attention. Shout out to Joseph O. Appreciate it. Michael always is in the mix there, talking and debating. I really do appreciate you guys tuning in at this hour. Christian and I were like, yeah, let's just do it live. I mean, we always record it. We're going to put out some content. So let's just do it live and see what happens. And let us know. What do you think is the toughest stretch? I think that it is after the bye week. You're going to get some rest, and then you got some tough competition there. And I do think, too, something to pay attention to, that closing stretch, man, Minnesota and Chicago. And it's not going to be at home this time. No. We get a little bit spoiled. The comfy confines of Ford Field, to close out the year. You remember that game against the Vikings going into it, all the marbles for the division, and the Lions were able to dominate largely due to the crowd at Ford Field. So now you got to go on the road. So that's what makes it a little bit more integral, that you hope that maybe the division's wrapped up, or could you imagine, Christian? You imagine final week against the Bears needing a win for the division or a spot in the postseason to get to 10 or 11 wins. I don't want to think about it, but it's going to be tougher. It's going to be a tough situation there. High headline, I think, early, that week 3 contest. I'm curious to see what they look like against Baltimore early. It'll be week 3. You're kind of more in line with what you're going to be executing. That first month of the season, is a little bit rough. It's a little bit like an extended preseason, but my goodness, that week 3 Baltimore game, I know I'm sensing that It might be one of those games where I travel to and be intently involved in that contest. I want to see Lamar in person. I think it's a situation where I've seen him now in that game where that Justin, that it brings back that memory of that kick where he just got it over the crossbar, that over 65-yard kick that broke everyone's heart. I'm trying to recall if that was the game where there was nobody in the stands, but I think there were fans in the stands for
Yeah, it
that
was
night. Everybody
2021.
saw it. Yeah, everybody saw it, and it just was a dagger. So you get revenge. And then the couple games that the Lions have played the Ravens just have not been competitive. So this time around, week 3, I want to see what it looks like. And a lot of the games the Lions face this year against their opponents that are playoff caliber are on the road. So it's going to be tough. The first quarter of the season, definitely something to watch and monitor. But what areas do you think are the strengths of this schedule? Where do the Lions take advantage? To me, it's early. I look at the schedule and I say, I think that first 7 games allows the Lions, and I teased it on our social media at Detroit Podcast. I teased it. I think that they go 5-2 to start the year, with losses probably to Baltimore and maybe to Cincinnati as well. A couple tough stretches there where there's an opportunity where it could be dicey there. Where do you see the Lions being able to take advantage of this schedule? Where are the advantages you see where if you're of the opinion they get to 11, 12, 13 wins, where do they come from?
Yeah, so my opinion on that is weeks 12 through 16. And here's why. There are some tough opponents littered in this stretch, but here's why I think the Lions, as long as they stay healthy, that's the big caveat when you talk about success late in the year is can they stay healthy? If they stay healthy, they've got a chance to rack up some wins here. The New York Giants in week 12, I think the Lions can handle business against them. Thanksgiving against the Green Bay Packers. I think the Lions broke the Thanksgiving curse last year, beating the Bears. I think they get the Packers. Dallas the following Thursday. Dallas, I wasn't impressed by last year. Obviously, they had a tough year without Dak Prescott for most of the year. And when I look at the roster, I'm just not super thrilled with how that roster has come together. I know that it's, you've got the Sunday and then back-to-back Thursdays, but I do think the Lions are built to handle that type of adversity. I think they can get through that stretch. And then you've got a little bit of a break, and then you go to Los Angeles. Who knows what the Rams are going to look like? They've got a lot of, with Matt Stafford getting up there in age, like how is he going to hold up by week 15? Is he going to be good to go and healthy, performing at his best? I don't know yet. Not necessarily banking on it. I think the Lions can handle business at SoFi Stadium. And then who knows what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to look like in week 16. Right now, Mason Rudolph's the quarterback. I know there's been sprinklings about Aaron Rodgers. I've written about it. I've written about how fun it would be for Aaron Rodgers to come back to Detroit as a member of the Steelers. But like I said, I just don't know where that team's going to be. I know Mike Tomlin's going to have them ready to play. I just don't necessarily think they can keep up with the Lions if that score gets up there. So within that 5-game stretch, if you can go 4-1, that would be really, really solid. That would be really, really solid. If you can sweep it, go 5-0, that would be exceptional. And that would probably cement their status as one of the best teams, if not the best, in the NFL. So that will be a defining stretch heading into the final 2 games of the season. And I think that is their opportunity to make a statement because they're going to have to go through the grind of playing back-to-back Thursdays, 3 games in 11 days, and then you got that break before going to Los Angeles, and then you get Pittsburgh at home. And to me, if you're able to get 4 wins out of that stretch, you're in a really good place heading into those 2 road games against Minnesota and Chicago. So that's a defining stretch in my opinion.
All right, here we go. I did it. You can go check it out at Lions on SI. You can see my early thoughts, and I respect those that are out there. Drop it in the comments. I'm curious what you guys think. I've seen 12 wins already. Excuse me. I've seen, and I love the fans, and you clearly see what some out there that cover the team are trying to do, and I get the hype. I could make the argument that, okay, I could see 12 to 13 wins. I could entertain the idea, but realistically, my win total for the 2025 season, in my opinion, is 11 wins. I see a reasonable stretch where you can play very well, but I also see the competition level kind of, evening out a little bit. And I mean, look, it's not some big stretch to say that this team's not going to win 15 games, but I just have a hard time when people are looking at that schedule the difficulties, and everybody's thinking like everything's going to go right, no injuries, all the officials are going to love the Lions, and they're just going to go out there and dominate again on the road. I just don't see it. I see 11 wins being reasonable, and it could be less. I'm a little bit more on the cautiously optimistic side of the coin, but I love the fans that are just like 13-4. My nephew's like, I love messaging my nephew now as he's getting to be 14, 15 years old, and he's like, are you kidding me? The Lions are the best team in the league. They're not getting 11 wins. They're going to get 13, 14 wins. And the fan base is excited. That's good. They should be. Coming off of the draft with Brad Holmes, this fan base should be excited. They should be optimistic that this football team will be in every game. And I think they're going to compete at a very high level. But I'm curious on your end, where do you see it fall? Do you see maybe 11, 12 wins? Do you see even higher? Are you a little bit more cautious and dip under 10? The over-under is 10.5. I think that, there's a reasonable chance if you throw a little cash on over 10.5, you might be in a position to cash the ticket. What do you think?
Yeah, so right now I have them at 12-5, but I'm teetering between 11 and 13. And there's a couple that I'm torn upon, and I won't spoil what my projection is going to be. We're going to have it out in the morning. But I do think that there is a reasonable expectation that this team can get to 13 wins. And I think part of the reason for that and kind of my optimism is the fact that they were able to win 15 games despite being so banged up last year. Like, I mean, when you really look back at it and when you're in the season, you're always identifying like how the team can improve and critiquing, and that's kind of our job. But when you really look back at the fact that they lost all those playmakers, particularly on defense, and they still finished 15-2, and you're bringing back all that firepower on offense. You made upgrades in the secondary. You've made moves to fortify the interior on both sides through the draft and free agency. Like, I think they're in a good spot. And obviously staying healthy is a huge caveat to that for them to reach their full potential. But even with all those injuries, man, they were able to get to 15-2. Like, I was very, very impressed. And it's not the same schedule this year, and it's not the same team this year. And so I do think there can be a reasonable expectation for a little bit of drop off. But I think because the Lions' core identity and culture is so strong, this is not going to be a team that disappoints. This is not going to be a team that disappoints. I think that as long as everybody stays healthy, that 11-13, potentially 14 on the high side, is kind of where they should be expected to perform, and that's the standard they should be held to. And at the same time, like I said, like injuries are never a guarantee, and they come at crazy times. But I do think if they stay healthy, there's a chance they can get to 14.
Oh, look at you. I like it. Listen, I love your youthful optimism. A great comment here comes in from Full State Farms. Lions have never won in Baltimore, have not beat Cincinnati since 1992, and have not beat Pittsburgh since 1998. Lions can't beat the teams out there in that division. Any concern at all about that slate of games in regards to the Lions? It's interesting. The AFC North might be one of those deals where you smack around the Browns but have trouble with the rest. I'm definitely curious about how those games shake out.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, you've got the chance to win the AFC North with 3 wins in the first 5 games. Yeah, I mean, as long as everybody stays healthy, they've got what it takes. They have all the talent they need. They have all of the core pieces and things like that. And like, if you get Hutchinson now healthy and he's back to what he was, you've got an elite dominant pass rusher on one end of your defense. And if they can figure it out with the other side, whether it's Davenport, Pascal, Hassanin, any combination of the 3 rotationally maybe, you're going to be in a good spot. And I think that if the cornerbacks that they added work out, and DJ Reed is the number 1 guy that you need him to be, you're going to be in a good spot. You're going to be able to withstand the highs and lows of a season. And that's another part of it too. Their culture is just so strong that they really don't allow themselves to take plays off or games off. So I'm excited to see where they go with it. But I feel pretty confident in that 11-13, potentially even 14 wins.
All right, one last thing here before we leave. This was our last topic. The big takeaway that everybody had from the coaches speaking offensively was the expectation that Jameson Williams is going to have a breakout season. Then I think a lot of people got hyped up. John Morton, Scotty Montgomery, the new wide receivers coach, said, look, he's coming in, ready to go. Meetings are tight. Jameson has come in, ready to work. Are you excited about the potential of Jameson Williams in 2025 having a breakout season?
Yeah, I mean, it's there. It's certainly there, and we saw that last year when he had over 1,000 receiving yards. Like, there's a lot to in terms of consistency. There's still a lot of meat left on that bone because he was absolutely a big play threat. He had a couple games where he had 120 receiving yards. Like, he's that dangerous as a wide receiver here at the NFL level. But I do think that there's some avenues where he can continue to be more consistent, and that's in fine tuning his route tree and finding new ways to get open. He needs to maybe improve a little bit with his physicality, but also as a run blocker, he's fine. I think that he's always going to be able to separate because of how fast he is, but I would like to see a little bit more finesse in that game, where maybe he's breaking routes off on in-breakers and out-breakers and things like that. So, there's still a lot of untapped potential with Jameson Williams. It kind of makes you a little bit nervous with what that contract could look like if he fully reaches his ceiling and he's a 1,300-yard guy. But I do think there's a lot there with him. I think he can help the Lions out a lot. He's still the number 2, so he's not necessarily going to get all the targets. But, he's absolutely going to be somebody who can stretch the defense and help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and also too, Thursday, the defensive side of the coin will come about, and Calvin Shepard and all the defensive coaches will speak on the new defensive linemen, speak to Tyleik Williams. So make sure you stay with Lions on SI YouTube. Thank you guys for withstanding the 30 minutes. That's what we wanted to do for our early thoughts. We'll break it down maybe again this weekend in a more enlightened manner too, as it's been a long day, and we just wanted to give our first reaction to the schedule as quickly as possible. And hey, you got to start somewhere. And our first, maybe it was a signal, our first time live crashed because of the DOC. My fault. It's funny that the podcast guy trying live videos has the first go round crash, but we'll see where this goes and how it plays out. Maybe we'll make it a more regular thing. Half hour with you and I is never a bad thing because we're breaking down the Lions on an insider basis. Thanks everybody for checking us out and staying up, commenting. Thank you. We really appreciate you subscribing and sharing and commenting and even sticking with an internet crash. Look forward to it. Hey, Lions NSI, right? 7 a.m. We bring it all day long. Videos, analysis, highlights, insider information. We'll bring it. We'll be here, and all free. Check us out. Appreciate all the support. See you, Christian. Let's get after it again tomorrow.
Sounds good.